Have you ever been in a situation where you feel like you're the only one who cares about a student? Maybe it's your admin, they're not helping, they're not partnering with you. Maybe it's the student's parents or guardians that you're consistently reaching out to them, trying to get them on board, trying to partner with them, and they just are not giving you anything in return. Or maybe you just have a student who feels helpless and hopeless and like no one else but you is on that student's team. This can be so hard, and it can honestly make it feel like you are teaching on an island without anyone else in your corner or the student's corner. Today's a little pep talk for you if you've ever been in this situation and kind of how I would approach what to do if admin don't care, if parents don't care, and at the end of the day, what that should look like for you and what's your responsibility as a teacher in this kind of role. Let's dive in. This is Secondary Science Simplified, a podcast for secondary science teachers who want to engage their students and simplify their lives. I'm Rebecca Joyner from It's Not Rocket Science. As a high school science teacher turned curriculum writer, I am passionate about helping other science teachers love their jobs, serve their students, and do it all in only 40 hours a week. Are you ready to rock the time you spend in your classroom and actually have a life outside of it? You are in the right place, teacher friend. Let's get to today's episode. Not to be redundant, because I feel like we have been talking about admin a lot, but I did want to kind of start off by saying, okay, what do you do if your admin don't care and you're trying to care for the student who just really needs more support, who needs some help with being held accountable, who just needs someone other than you caring about their success, and the admin just don't care in your school? I will say what I've said, I feel like 3 episodes in a row now. It tends to be impossible to change the culture and the climate of a job if you have bad admin. They really can make or break your job and how you feel about your job and the success you find that you can have in your job and in students' lives if your admin are not helpful or not on board or not really for students. So my first recommendation is if you're struggling with admin who just do not care about students and don't want to partner with you and help you see students succeed, to me, that is a personal make it or break it. I would be looking for a new job. I have a bunch of podcast episodes about this and how to evaluate your teaching contract and when to know when to make a change, episode 121. So give those a listen if that is a situation you find yourself to be in. Now, I want to kind of approach this teaching on an island in the sense of those of you who maybe you're at a really small school, maybe you're one of a handful of teachers. And so already there, you don't have a lot of companionship or camaraderie when it comes to your coworkers. Maybe your admin are helpful, but they can only do so much. And so you're reaching out to parents, trying to get them to help you partner alongside you to see the success of their children, and they just don't care. And so the first thing I want to say to you is you have to do your due diligence, okay? You need to do what is required of you and what is best for students, which is even if the parents are terrible, you are going to reach out and continue to reach out and do your job. Episode 195 is a guest episode I did where I interviewed a teacher, Amanda, and she talks all about this really effective parent communication strategy that she has that's worked really well for her. I also share a parent log that I have in my Secondary Science Simplified virtual PD course. That's a part of that. But keeping track of reaching out to parents, attempting, even if they're not responding, even if you're not getting anything in return, I think is really important that you're at least doing your due diligence. And you can always say, I did what I was supposed to do when it comes to reaching out to parents. The second thing I'll say when it comes to parents who don't care or care too much or are casting blame on you for everything is to never, ever take parent feedback personally. They tend to be the most removed from your classroom. They're not in your classroom like your students. They're not in your building like your admin. So they don't necessarily always have an accurate view of what's going on. I've also found that most parents tend to have an idealistic version of their child and their student. They always assume the best, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing to be positive about your children, but they often find it hard and get defensive when it comes to hearing negative feedback about their children. And so I would say don't take any feedback from them personally. Always assess if there is any truth that you can address. But most of the time, it's usually not about you, any attitude or lack of engagement that you're experiencing from them. Typically, they've got some other things going on and it has nothing to do with you. And if you struggle with this, episode 70 is an interview I did with my chemistry teacher, Zach Matson, and it's so good. He has incredible amounts of experience dealing with difficult parents, especially as a teacher of chemistry, which is a state required lab science in the state I grew up in. Also, he teaches honors chemistry and engineering chemistry and AP chemistry. So he's dealing with some high achieving students that have some overreaching parents, if you will. So it's a great episode if you struggle with parents, but that's what I'll say. Do your due diligence. Don't take it personally. And then I want to encourage you to think about what it must feel like to be the student in this situation. The student in a home where maybe their parents are overbearing, or maybe the opposite. A student in a home where their parents just don't care and are not engaged in helping see them be successful in your class. That is a hard place to find yourself at any age, but especially as a teenager. And so I would consider the student there, and I would bring in the school counselor. You should have a school counselor at your school who cares about students' well-being. It's hard to find a school counselor, someone who get in that role who doesn't. If your admin are not getting involved, if parents aren't getting involved, I would be reaching out to that school counselor and having them also be reaching out to the parents and trying to get them to engage. This should not be your burden alone to bear. You're doing your due diligence. You're going to take that evidence to your admin, to the school counselor, show what you have done. And at the end of the day, hope that they're going to do their jobs as well. But you can only do what you can do, and you have to let go of other people not doing their jobs. Now, in terms of what should you be responsible for? What should you do in order to help this student when it doesn't feel like there's anyone else in their life trying to help them succeed? I would be going straight to that student, building a personal relationship with them, and just trying to have a conversation with them. Show them curiosity and show them compassion. Okay, curiosity for their scenario. Ask them questions. What's going on in their life? Why are they not finding success in your classroom? How do they need you to help and partner with them? What is it that you can do? And you can be honest with them. Say, hey, you're gonna have to meet me halfway here. Like, you'll have to read the room as to whether or not you should acknowledge the fact that maybe their parents are not involved or being helpful or anything like that. But just saying, hey, I want to see you be successful in this class. And I believe that you can do it. Help me help you get to that place. Let's partner together. And really, I say that, show them compassion, because again, I just keep thinking about that student whose parents don't care about their success. That is something that they're carrying all the time. This knowledge that their parents are not clued into them and their success. So that's impacting them. So I would really try to meet with that student and form a partnership with them so that they can be successful. I had one teacher reach out and tell me that they had a severely ADHD child that was hard to help them focus when the parents won't give him his medicine and won't do anything to help. And in that situation, that would definitely be one where I'm going to admin, I'm going to the school counselor. I'm saying, hey, like, this student needs this help. You guys need to help partner with me in serving this student. And then I'd also be approaching that student and saying, hey, like, the compassion there. Of course, you're having a hard time focusing. Of course, this is difficult for you. If you're not, if you are neurodivergent and you have been diagnosed with something where you have medication that will assist you and your parents aren't helping make sure you take it, then of course, this is going to be hard. And trying to meet them where they are, and instead of being exasperated with them for something that is outside of their control, and that it's really the responsibility of the parents. And that's what I'm really hoping in this episode you're hearing me say, is that I really just don't want any teacher taking on extra responsibility and extra burden that is not meant for you to bear. You have a role as a teacher. The school counselor has a role as a counselor. Admin has their role. Parents have their role. Guardians have their role. Okay. And the way we get burned out is when we try to do all these other roles. But you can do your role well, which is informing the other people, the other stakeholders who are on this team, and then doing your best. The nice thing about high school is they are becoming young adults. And so we can really get level with them and say, hey, I understand that this is hard for you. I'm going to do my best to help you. And let's work together here. I'm on your team and I want to see you successful, even if it feels like I'm the only one on your team, but you don't need to tell them that. Another teacher said, how do I feel positive for the kid that struggles and gets zero support from home despite school bending over backwards? So without a lot of context on this situation, I would say I'm so grateful to hear that it feels like the school is bending over backwards and trying to help this student. I would also say I feel very sad that there's no support from home. Any of these situations where parents are just not engaged and helpful, I would take a crazy overbearing parent any day over a parent that's just like disengaged and apathetic about their child's life. So I would say that that is really, really hard. But I would also say, what classes is a student in? Like, I don't think there's any reason why a student in a CP college prep on grade level class who's doing their best and showing up every day could not pass your class if they're in your class. Honors, advanced, AP, those things are different. They're going to require extra effort, those kinds of things outside of school. But I would be seeing, does this student need accommodations that we might need to be testing for? Can we take over that and make some of these things happen so that this child is successful, not just this year in my school, but in all the years to come, because I'm going to advocate for them. But again, curiosity and compassion, and not taking on this burden all by yourself. It is not meant for you to do. If you are teaching on an island, I'm telling you right now, build a raft and get to swimming towards someone else, because I do not want you doing this all on your own. And I especially don't want you doing this all for the student. You cannot be working harder than the student is working. Okay. We have to hold students accountable, and we can't care more than they care. Episode 123 is all about what to do when you care more than your students. You cannot walk across the graduation stage for them. You cannot take their final exams for them. So at the end of the day, you are going to have to set some boundaries here for the sake of your mental health. We're going to do the best we can on behalf of this student, but we're not going to kill ourselves, sacrifice our mental health, our family, and our other students for the sake of helping one student who's not willing to help themselves. Okay. Now, for a student that's showing up and doing their best, but their family and stuff is not supporting them, that's when I'm willing to kind of go the extra mile for. But again, you still can't do it all yourself. And that's where we need to get admin and other people involved. And I mean, I hate to say it, but if your admin or your school counselor is not doing their job, it might be worth looking at a district level to say, hey, this is a student I'm trying to help. Here's this whole situation. I'm not getting any support. Can you give me some support? And seeing how you can help serve these kinds of students. But if it's a student that's not trying themselves, then at some point, we kind of have to hold our own personal boundary there. Now, recently I was asked this question, and it was related to the context of faithfulness and faithfulness in my personal religious beliefs, which I'm not going to get into on this podcast because I know it won't apply to everyone listening. But I think the question is still a valuable question with regards to faithfulness just to your work and your other commitments and your role as a teacher. So the question I was asked is, what does faithfulness look like in this season in your current circumstances? So sometimes I can be one of those people that's quick to always want to solve the problem, change the circumstance, manipulate things around me so that they're easier, smoother, more joyful, etc. And the person who asked me this question said, but what would it just look like just to be faithful to what you believe in your season of life? And so that's the question I kind of want to turn on you today and leave with you at the end of this podcast. What does faithfulness to your job look like with this student right now? What would it look like to be faithful? Not to solve every problem, not to physically drag this student across the graduation line come May, not to make their parents be better parents or make your admin actually care and do their job, but would it look like just for you to be faithful to your job and your role as their teacher in the life of this student for the remainder of this school year? And can you just do that and try to let go of everything else that's completely outside of your control? What would that look like? So that's the question I want to leave you with today. I want you to consider. If you want to talk to me and engage with me about that, I'd love to hear from you. You can always email me at rebecca@itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com, but DMs on Instagram are really easy too for like conversational stuff like that. And I'm at It's Not Rocket Science. You can find me over there. There are a lot of episodes I referenced that I think would really support you. If this is an area where you're struggling and if you feel like you're on an island, you can find all of those linked in the show notes at itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/episode 231. And we're just a few weeks away from me closing the applications to come on the podcast and be a guest. I would love to interview you if you're a full-time high school science teacher. So fill out the application, bit.ly/SSSguest. I'll be reviewing them mid-May and scheduling interviews for this summer. I would love to have you come on the podcast and talk to you about your teaching experience as a high school science teacher. All right, teacher friends, that wraps up today's episode. If you're looking for an easy way to start simplifying your life as a secondary science teacher, head to itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/challenge to grab your classroom reset challenge. And guess what? It's totally free. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you here next week. Until then, I'll be rooting for you, teacher friend.